closed in early December. So
December 3rd, I believe they
Okay.
closed.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Select Board meeting. It's Monday, December 16th. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will start by granting Westwood Media Center permission to record the meeting. Is there anyone else wishing to record the meeting? Okay. Few updates under Chairman's Update. And this is timely, given we are expecting another weather-related event in the morning. It started on December 1st, but now and through March 31st, we have a townwide overnight parking ban that runs from now until then every night. Cars should not be parked on the street, vehicles should not be parked on the street from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. The Public Works Assistant Director or the Police Chief who have people out on the road plowing snow, removing ice from any way along the town, may remove or cause to be removed any vehicle interfering with such work. So to remind people, no parking on the streets between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. from now through March 31st. Something that became more newsworthy last year when the fire chief was encouraging people to adopt fire hydrants to clear snow. It's something we want to remind people about, that if you have a fire hydrant near your house and you can safely do so, it's appropriate to remove the snow from the hydrant. It's simply impossible for our DPW and fire departments to do that everywhere in a timely manner. So we really look to the public to help with that. We also want to remind people not to throw or place any snow or ice onto any town street, sidewalk, or on top of hydrants. So this means Mother Nature will do what will happen, but we should not make it any worse. And if you have snow plows that come to your home, they should not be putting the snow into the streets or up on sidewalks as a place to store the snow, and just use common sense for the rest. Let's see. We also want to point out that in town there are 2,200 catch basins or storm drains. And it is helpful if you know where those are to make sure they stay clear of leaves, debris, or whatever that could clog them on the surface and prevent them from doing the work they need to do and allow water to drain. So this is just everybody, we're part of the town, and we just look to people to participate as best they can. Next, I want to let people know that we are approaching the end of the year, and once again this year, the Recreation Department will host the New Year's Eve fireworks. They will take place again at the Westwood High School, and it will be on Tuesday, December 31st at 7 p.m. So it's something to look forward to, and we once again thank Roach Brothers for sponsoring the fireworks in town. And the DPW is happy to let people know that starting on December 26th, we will once again have cardboard dumpster located at the DPW at 50 Carby Street, and you can dispose of cardboard only refuse. No trash, wrapping paper, or styrofoam will be included, and the hours are December 26th, 27th, and 30th from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. December 31st from 7 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and January 2nd and 3rd from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I imagine this will be posted on the website, so just remember, once again, you can get rid of cardboard after the holidays. This is a great way to get rid of things and not overload your own recycling bins, so take advantage of this and check the town's website to confirm the hours. Next up, we have a scheduled action for the Marriott Courtyard along University Avenue. Nora Loughnane, if you could join us. They are here to issue a new common vic license. Is that right?
Well,
Specialty catering?
so it's a
Fill us in.
Yes, it's a transfer of the common Vittler license. Right
Okay.
now, there's a single alcohol license, common Vittler license, that's issued to a subsidiary of TMI, who was the former owner of Courtyard Marriott. Courtyard Marriott has now sold. TMI is staying as the temporary organization holding the liquor license until the new owners get a new liquor license, which you'll hear they're filing an application for that as well. The staff is the same, but we have a new manager. This is Helen Buckley.
Hi, Helen.
Helen is the new manager.
And is that part of what we're approving? Right.
Yes. So the purpose is to issue a new CV license to the hotel due to the change of ownership. This will allow food service to continue while the alcohol license is applied for and approved by the select board. So the alcohol license has not been fully applied for yet. You'll see that at a subsequent meeting. In the meantime, TMI is renewing its alcohol license. So you're separating out the alcohol and the CV, since the hotel will be handling its own CV, and they're just using the alcohol license under the former owner, who is staying in control. There's an agreement between the new owner of the hotel and the old owner, so that the old owner is staying responsible for the alcohol license.
Okay, let's deal with the manager first. Do we have action to approve the new manager? Is that
No,
not
because the
necessary?
new
under
manager will be on the new license.
So who is the individual responsible for overseeing management under the old license?
My understanding is that the, Helen will be the on-site manager, is that correct? But the TMI license will continue. So
Not an ideal
yeah.
situation. So it's kind of like you're in charge, but you're not on,
Yeah.
what kind of time lag do we have before all this is in
So
place?
I understand the alcohol license application has begun, but it has not been completed. There's an agreement, the property transferred ownership, I think it was about a week and a half ago. And under the agreement between TMI and the new owners, the existing hotel staff remains under the new ownership except for the manager. Helen will be the new day manager, scheduling to attend the hearing tonight. A complete application with associated attachments, payment for licenses has been received and reviewed, but it has not been submitted for full approval to the ABCC yet. The former
Town council, help me here.
This time of year, it'll take up to 6 to 8 weeks to get it through the ABCC because they get backed up at year's end. So even if they wanted to, they
Yeah,
probably...
we have a situation. It's what we have.
Right.
Normally, if there's a change in manager, we expect to hear about it promptly.
Yes.
File
And-
that because that person's responsible
Correct.
for making sure the CV license and the alcohol license requirements are adhered to.
That's correct. So you actually have, the way I look at it, you actually have two entities on the hook. You have the old entity who holds the liquor license, and if there's a problem, you also have the new entity who's applying for a license in good standing. I don't think they want to do anything to jeopardize that application at this point in
No,
time.
no, and I'm by no means suggesting it. I just want to make sure we know where responsibility falls. So what?
It always falls with the holder of the license.
That's what it would seem. So what I see in front of us is that we are here approving the CV license to Schulte Catering of Westwood LLC
Yes.
for use at the Courtyard Boston Dedham Westwood.
That's right. So Schulte will be responsible for everything except for alcohol. Alcohol will continue to be the responsibility of TMI, under an agreement that Schulte and TMI have.
Yep.
That-
And then we
that
go to the
town
next
council's
agenda
reviewed.
item, and we're renewing the license
Renewing
as part
TMI's
of.
license, yes.
Okay. I've asked a few questions. Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
John?
I'm good.
Okay.
I move that we grant approval for the common victual license to
Schulte.
Schulte Catering of Westwood LLC for use at the Courtyard Boston Dedham Westwood.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Helen, do you have any questions before you go? I'm glad you're here. Welcome.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so you're already in place? And
Yes, I'm in place. Yeah,
Were you already with?
I was with TMI, so I moved over with Schulte.
I see.
Yes,
Okay.
when they did the sale. I went over to Schulte. So I've been there since opening,
Okay,
yes.
so you know the operations.
And-
Yes.
Even more reassuring.
The rest of the existing staff have also transferred over, is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Did Courtyard sell
They
many?
did. They did.
Not just this location, but
No,
others?
they sold, I want to say 13 of them. TMI sold 13.
But keeping the name?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for coming in.
All right.
All right, maybe we'll see you on the alcohol
Thank you.
license or change of manager. We'll
Okay.
talk to Nora about whether that's
That's the
necessary.
next step.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All
My
right.
understanding was that just because it was in transition with the two licenses, that it was a clearer process with the ABCC just to apply with the new manager under the new license.
Sure. That makes sense.
So as not to delay it any further.
Okay, ranks up there as one of my least favorite aspects of what we have to do each year, license renewals. Okay, so we're going to have a lot of names and everything. I guess, let me start by asking if people have questions, if the board has questions on any particular one for any reason. After I read them, go through the whole list. If you have any you want to point out, if there are any issues, I'm not expecting any, but otherwise, I'm just going to roll right through this.
Okay.
So, yeah,
It might be easiest if I just tell you right up front, there are two that are seasonal, so we don't
Right.
have their inspections yet.
Yeah.
That's Bubbling
restaurants.
Brook and Lifetime Bistro. There is one that has an outstanding hours extension, Camellas, that we should discuss. And then there are 3 taxi licenses that are pending their vehicle inspections. They have
yeah,
not.
and I'll
come in for
highlight those when we get to them. So it's my understanding that this is actually an official public hearing?
It is.
Okay, so the licenses we will name go under junk dealer, class 1 automobile dealer, common vicular license, on-premise alcohol, off-premise alcohol, entertainment, taxi operators, livery, and unattended donation containers. And these would be license renewals as we go into the 2020 calendar year. The licensing division introduced online permitting to the renewal process. All licensed premises have been completed and submitted 2020 renewal applications, et cetera. So this goes through a process, and let's see, public safety inspections are pending, and inspections and Alcohol Beverage Control Commission approval is also pending. All right, so junk dealers, we have Dolabany Jewelers, K Jewelers, and GameStop. Class 1 auto dealer, Audi Westwood, Porsche Westwood, Mercedes-Benz of Westwood, and Prime Acura. The CV licenses, Birdie's Creative Creamery, BB's Cafe and Bakery. Bubbling Brook will approve, but pending spring inspections for when it reopens in March, I think it's usually.
Yes.
Chipotle's, Dunkin' Donuts, Coffee Grinders Donuts is the first Dunkin' Donuts Medway Donuts, Dunkin' Donuts Westwood Donuts, and Dunkin' Donuts High Street Donuts. So I guess those are all different franchises. Next Dine Cafe, Panda Express, Panera Bread, Starbucks on High Street, Starbucks University Avenue, Stewart Westwood Cafe, Sodexo Services is one, Target, Tastefully Done Restaurant and Catering, Epicurean Feast, Islington Pizza and Sub, Lifetime Cafe, Lifetime Bistro would have approvals pending spring inspections, and Mercedes-Benz Cafe, Wegmans, Which Superior Sandwiches, Westwood Jade, and Westwood Pizza. No issues on any of those at this point.
No.
Okay. On-premise CV all alcohol, Anthony's Cold Fire Pizza, Blue Orchid, Chiara Bistro, Del Frisco's Grill, Norfolk Golf Club, Not Your Average Joe's, TMI of Westwood, and you've mentioned that earlier, Wild Blossom, and then on-premise CV wine and malt beverage, Camellas, their existing hours, they have not yet adopted the early breakfast hours.
Correct. They're still interested in that. You voted last year to,
Well, this year.
yes.
Not last year yet, for
Last
2019.
license year, you
Yep.
voted to allow them to open at 6 a.m. contingent upon them having final approval of a sign and with permission from the owner, and they haven't gone beyond that step. They haven't come in with a design or locations of a sign or proof of approval
Is there
by
an
the owner.
expiration on our approval?
No, there isn't, and I think it would be helpful if you were to clarify that, when you renew, that approval was in relation to the license for 2019. This is a renewal, which I believe sets up essentially a new
I would think
license.
so.
So I think it would
Anybody
be helpful for
disagree on
you to
that?
discuss whether you want to put a time limit on that. The applicant has requested just a certification.
I think they
that the
should
vote
renew their
continues.
request in 2020 if they want to pursue it. I don't think it would be a hard thing to renew, but I don't think it was meant to be out there in perpetuity.
Indefinitely.
Okay, so the on-premise CV license we mentioned, Camellas, the Toast Office, are they actually renewing? They don't,
Toast
they're not
Office?
open at dinner.
They're not open at dinner, but they're open during the
For
day
lunch?
and for brunch on Sunday,
still have it,
Saturday and
okay.
Sunday, yes.
Smash Burger, so those are the on-premise malt and wine beverage. And then off-premise wine and malt, Roach Brothers, High Street, Lambert's Rainbow Fruit, and Wegmans. Any questions on any of those? Why don't we take those as a group, if we can? Town Council, can we do a motion on all those as one as presented?
As long as you articulate the specific contingencies.
Mr. Walsh, are you prepared to do that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I move that we approve the four alcohol licenses,
Various licenses, yeah.
various licenses up for renewals for the junk dealer, the Class 1 auto dealer, the CV license, the on-premises CV all alcohol license, the on-premises CV Walt and Mine beverages, and the off-premises Walt and Mine beverages, subject to, of course, spring inspections for both Bubbling Brook and Lifetime Beefstro. And we also will grant to Camellas their license that they presently maintain, which begins at 10 a.m. daily. And once signs are installed, as requested at our approval in June, we will welcome him back to seek a change of hours.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Now we have entertainment licenses. We have Chiara Bistro. And just so the public knows, the entertainment licenses have to do with the TVs that are in these restaurants. Chiara Bistro, Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza, Wild Blossom, Not Your Average Joe's, Blue Orchid, TMI of Westwood, at the Westwood Courtyard, Wegmans, Camellas, the Toast Office, and Del Frisco's Grill. Any questions? Okay.
I move that we approve the aforementioned entertainment licenses.
Second.
Are there any subject tos? Any qualifications, sir? Okay. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Taxi company licenses. So this is where you mentioned we have some pending vehicle inspections. So the ones that are complete, is it fair to say the other ones are complete?
They are.
Alpha Taxi Service of Westwood, American Taxi, King's Taxi Service, Norfolk Town Taxi, and Maurice Cab are complete, and the next three are pending vehicle inspections, American Norfolk Taxi, Family Taxi, and On Time Taxi Service. Any questions? Okay.
I move that we approve the taxi company licenses for those that are completely approved and subject, of course, to pending vehicle inspections from the police department for the other three, as mentioned.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, none. One livery license that was new this past year, and I just want to ask, any issues?
No issues at all.
Great. That's for Boston Carriage, so why don't we do that one?
I move that we approve the livery license for Boston Carriage.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Unattended donation containers, we have three. Westwood Lions Club has the eyeglass donation bin on High Street. St. Pauli's Textiles has the clothing donation bin at the First Baptist Church on High Street. And Bay State Textiles has the clothing bin donation at 7 Clappertree Street, Temple Beth David. Any issues? Questions?
I move that we approve the unattended donation containers as previously mentioned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Did we miss anything, Nora?
You didn't miss anything, but I want to point out that we had one, in 2019, we had one Class 2 auto dealer's license. It's issued to Enterprise on,
Closed.
yes, so they have not written to us to say that they were surrendering the license, but they're not currently at the location, and their license will expire on December 31st.
Right.
They have not gotten back to us.
Where were they?
We were on Route 1, Route 1 North, just,
By the
Just
Shell gas station?
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Between
right,
Shell
right.
and the...
Oh, yeah. It was like an old auto dealer building.
Yeah.
it was an old
Yeah,
auto
yeah.
dealer, yeah. It's been Enterprise for several years, and there's been no communication. They haven't returned any phone calls or emails. So we expect they would not be interested in renewing, but in any event, their license will expire on December 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did it.
Thank you, Norm.
Not so bad.
Not so bad. Not when there aren't issues. And we don't usually have issues, so that's good. Our next item is a new business item, non-binding referendum questions. Mr. Appel, are you here? Why don't you join us at the table? So let me just frame it a little bit, and I'll ask you some questions. So we have a request from Matt Appel, who is a New Westwood resident, to consider placing 5 non-binding referendum questions on the upcoming town meeting ballot. So the town meeting flows through we have the election at the end of April, leading up to town meeting. And the questions are, do you support the ban of the sale or distribution of plastic straws by any commercial or retail establishment in Westwood? Second, do you support the ban of the sale or distribution of any single-use plastic bottles containing any beverage, including water, soda, fruit juice, or energy drinks, 1 liter or less, by any commercial or retail establishment in Westwood? Third, do you support requiring that the Dedham Westwood Water Authority to stop the fluoridation of water provided to Westwood residents? Fourth, do you support requiring the Westwood Public Schools to serve organic food and/or food from local farms for school lunch and breakfast? And fifth, do you support the ban of the sale or distribution of plastic bags by any commercial or retail establishment in Westwood? And I guess I would start, Matt, by asking what you hope putting the non-binding referendum questions on the ballot will do and where you see this going, if we can start there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Actually, I don't have the signatures for the fluoridation question, so I want to take that off the list if possible. I
I don't know that you need signatures if it goes through us, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So my goal is really to get the conversation going about being more environmentally conscious within Westwood, and it is looking to be a learning experience for the kids of the town as well as for the adults of the town. Since many communities have enacted such laws and regulations on plastics within their community, and we haven't yet. Dedham hasn't yet, and some of the towns around us haven't yet. But I know we've done research on plastic bags, but I would like to get the conversation going within the community about how we could be better as a community for the environment, and be better examples for our kids to be more active in politics and in citizenry, as being an active citizen.
So I'm just going to ask you, have you familiarized yourself with what's already going on in terms of education with students? Because there are a lot of programs that schools are doing, and our Westwood Environmental Action Committee has already taken up at least one of these issues.
I am, and I'm familiar with what's going on in the state as well in terms of banning plastics. I think 55% of the communities or the residents in Massachusetts already have a ban on plastic bags. 80 different communities, including Boston. So, I mean, there's a statewide initiative right now to go and banning plastic bags. So my goal is really to activate the community, but also, I mean, I think it's in the best interest that we remove plastics from Westwood, be it plastic straws, plastic bags, or plastic bottles. We don't recycle as a community plastic bags today. We don't recycle, only about 5% of all plastic straws get recycled globally. There's 500 million straws are used in the country every single day. There's other alternatives to plastic straws. There's definitely alternatives to plastic bags. Not just paper bags, which I know the environmental group here has done a study on between paper bags and plastic bags, which, there's one study, but there's other studies as well on that. And so I would like to not only activate the community and be a teaching lesson for the kids, but to remove plastics from the questions around plastics. The question around organic food and farm-to-table food. I have a child, a 7-year-old at Martha Jones. I have a 2-year-old that will be going to Martha Jones. I know that in the United States, we allow chemicals in our food that are banned in Europe. For instance, if our kids are eating pizza today, is the pizza made with bleached flour or unbleached flour. I don't really know. I'm not sure if the school committee knows. But to make sure that our kids are actually eating healthy, we could just say, why don't we offer them an organic or a farm-to-table, locally grown offering? There's plenty of farms around here. So that question is basically just to take care of our kids and make sure they're eating healthy. We have a lot of processed foods, a lot of chemicals, so
Yeah.
I'm a big supporter of that.
So all these questions are non-binding, and my challenge to you is to have you go speak to entities that already exist in town, Westwood Environmental Action, the schools, and the Dedham Westwood Water Authority, because you may not need the non-binding questions to engage in conversation and education. It's an interesting approach. It's not to say you don't go forward with it, but all that will do is get you some numbers of people saying, yes, talk about it, no, don't talk about it. But if they're worthy of talking about, you don't need to wait for that. So I just put
People-
that out
yeah.
there for you to think.
No, it's a great suggestion.
But I would encourage you, before we take action, to talk to Dedham Westwood Water Authority regarding the fluoridation, or stopping the fluoridation, because they're the ones that control and make the decisions regarding the water in town.
Yep.
The school department and the school committee would be worthy of you approaching in terms of the food and how those decisions are made, at what level, and find out from Superintendent Parks who you should talk to. I mean, I just think if you want to get the conversation going, go to the right people to start it. And the Westwood Environmental Action Committee, I personally wouldn't want to see you going on a parallel path. They're the group that we appoint, and they do a lot of great work. We've done a lot of great things in town to date environmentally, and I know that committee is always looking at expanding what we do, but we're green communities. We have the stretch code. We did look at education as part of the plastic bag discussion versus a ban. There are a myriad of things that have been discussed. So I would like to see you, if you're as passionate about this as you are presenting, to work with what we have in place, because that's what we look to as the select board, is to that committee for taking up these issues and bringing them to our attention. And it doesn't mean that you don't want to come back. You could still come back and say, I still want to do this, but I'd like to give you that as feedback. And I invite my colleagues to comment further if they would like to. Go ahead, John.
Well, I happen to agree with Nancy. I mean, we have all these committees in town that review these things all the time, and it's nice that you step forward, but you gotta step forward and talk to the right people. We kind of give ourselves these committees to kind of vet things a little bit and to see, when they do their own informal polls or formal polls, that they come up with the information and then make a recommendation to us. I depend on more of the committee than I do on single individuals, especially because they're non-binding, So I would say that definitely is at least the two that jumped out at me was the schools. It's not an easy change, and it might be twice as costly as, to go organic. If you ever shop in the supermarket, you find out the difference between those that are called organic versus non-organic and the price difference. So there's a whole lot of things to be weighed, and I think that if we have some feedback from them and at least give them, the heads up that you're thinking this way, at least it'll be easier for us to then make a decision.
Yeah, and I mean, I give you a lot of credit. I do, for just engaging in it. But when I first saw this, in my head, it was similar to my colleagues, I guess, to what end, right? So it feels like a ballot is kind of an end point of a long process, and here we've started with the ballot. All ballots have to be clearly understandable. The issue of fluoridation, I mean, we could bring in experts for days to debate whether fluoridation is good or bad, right? I happen to support fluoridation of the water. So I don't know that we just want to put that out there to the citizenry, right? I think all of these have been discussed in various venues and have a lot. The other piece that I would talk about is the plastic bag ban. My understanding is that we're on the path to a statewide ban.
We are, yeah, but there's no guarantee.
No, there's no guarantee, but I mean, I think that's just part of this conversation, of this process. So, I mean, I don't want you to leave here tonight feeling like there's, opposition to some of the themes, but I think it's more the process just doesn't feel right, is the sense that I have and my colleagues seem to share.
It's just different. It's a different approach. I think we would just want to share with you what exists, which might be productive in terms of getting to an end goal. And I want to add, I know that some places have talked about the single-use plastic bottles. On that, I would love to have WEAC just, you can participate with them. You don't have to be appointed, or you can become appointed. But that's a very different distribution issue in terms of what happens instead, and grocery stores planning for it. And I've seen it attempted in other areas and not yet implemented. So I think we could all learn more about what that involves. I think that would be very interesting. But I encourage you to learn what's in place, look at who's already here, and evaluate, because we have time. The ballot questions, it's 35 days in advance of the ballot.
Can I clear that up for you?
Please, did I say something wrong?
No, you are absolutely correct. The Board of Selectmen, as the governing body in town, can put a non-binding referendum on up to 35 days before the actual vote. If, however, you choose not to put that on, Mr. Pell, you want to move forward, you have a very high hurdle to move forward. You would need to get 10% of the registered voters. We have 11,000 registered voters, the town clerk tells me. So you need to get 1,100 signatures for each one of those ballot questions you want to put on.
That's a lot of work.
That's no small task. You're talking to someone who's gotten signatures in town for the past 25 years. That would be,
I know it.
and it's 90 days, so you'd have to have that done by the end of January to get on end of April. I believe it's April 26th is when we go to the polls. Is it the 26th or 27th, Mr. Walsh?
I believe it's the
Last
28th.
Tuesday of April.
Oh, pardon me.
That's a lot. We're
I'm
not
still
sitting
working
here
2
saying
years
that's
ago.
what you need to do. I think that's a lot of time and effort
But
for very
wanted-
little return.
I just wanted
Yeah.
that on the table so everybody understands the ground rules moving
Yeah.
forward.
So do you
Thank you.
understand my point that even if you got yeses, it would only be to start a conversation,
Sure, and I
and we
think,
can start it anyway.
yeah, and I think, so the committees themselves are non-binding, right? They make recommendations to
Correct.
the board here. So, they're similar in that way in terms of non-binding referendum. I understand that you're looking at
You could get
individuals
moving on it
versus
sooner.
experts, but I think that the part of what I was trying to do is to get a conversation going. So when you have something on a ballot, you then have people writing about it in the newspaper, and then you have people making their pros and their cons to the ballot question themselves. Now we have a committee where we don't have the whole town engaged in something like this. So that was part of the reason to put something on the ballot, is to get the town engaged in thinking and get people more active in what the policies are within the
So
town.
if you still want to do it, come back and tell us what that engagement program will look like.
And with all due respect, I agree with you about, like, WEAC is a committee of the Board of Selectmen who's advisory. The school committee is not advisory. They are charged with running the schools and the school lunch program. And having them understand what you're trying to do, and they have, my understanding is very cursory. They have requirements around source of food and what is viewed as nutritional standards that they must make. And I think they have to take, there's a fair amount of government surplus food that they take or they're required to take. I don't know. So those are all things that need to be thought about and investigated, and they need to make a conscious decision if they want to move forward, those kind of things.
Sure. No, it makes perfect sense to work with the other groups and do more research and
Yeah,
and then
so
come.
clearly the schools, the question about the food and the fluoridation to the Dedham Westwood water, that's clearly where you must go.
May I
Because-
tell you one other thing? In my research, we get a fair amount of our water from MWRA,
Yeah,
and that's fluoridated as well.
that's given to everybody, so.
Right.
There's an onion here, and they're peeling off layers of the onion. I think WEAC is a great place to talk to about the straws, plastic bottles, and what else could be done to discuss a better way to approach the plastic bags if the state doesn't institute its own ban. I know there are communities, like you said, who have adopted measures, and it's the single-use bags. I mean, they break it down, which plastic bags, so it's not all, and then I know the discussions have been, what's the alternative? Is paper bag as the alternative really the best answer? And what our WEAC committee did was educate people on reusing bags and bringing them with you when you shop. So there are a lot of ways to approach this. I'd invite you to explore that. Get back in touch with our town administrator and let us know if you want to come back, and we'll take up which, if some or all, we put on the ballot. So, and then you can decide if you want to collect those signatures. I guess Mr. Hearn has noted the signature collection process needs to be done more timely, and
Sure. And so,
you can think about it.
Councilor Hearn, you mentioned that 10%. That is only if the select board doesn't
Doesn't put it
approve,
in.
right? So, but if they, I was told by Dottie in the town hall there that I needed 10 signatures to come
10.
in front.
10 to come in front.
Yes.
Selectman approves it. Within 35 days of a ballot question, they can go on.
Okay.
All right, but selectmen don't approve it?
Yeah.
We'll be spending
So come
many
back at our
morning in
next
front of the
meeting, think
post
about it.
office.
This is the first chance we've had to meet with you. Thank you for coming forward. Welcome to Westwood. And you'll find that a lot of good things are going on here, so,
He
join
lives on a
on.
great street.
Great. Thank you very much. I
Sure.
appreciate your time.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Matt, you're down the bottom of Church Street, right?
At the top of the hill.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I'm a little further
your
up
neighbor.
than you.
All right, great.
Nice
Okay,
to see
thanks
you.
for coming in.
Thank you.
Did the public want to comment before you guys are here from WEAC? There's some people you might want to meet. You got to be at a mic, or it won't matter what you say. Nobody will hear.
I'm not speaking as a representative of WEAC now, but just as a resident. I think there are many ways that we can raise awareness, and it can come from a committee like us, but it also can come from residents. And sometimes you use different ways, because even our campaign for the bags, reusable bag, we worked very hard, but we don't know how much of an impact we had. So if we keep reminding people about certain things, even if they not mandated, I think it's still useful.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe you want to narrow it down somehow. Maybe think about if you have fewer questions.
So why don't you
we
follow
can
up
try-
and have a
You can
conversation?
have a conversation, but you can still go on your own. But
Yeah.
the way you have the backup of others.
Okay, thanks, Maria. Okay.
I
I will move on to the next agenda item. It is the authorization of funding to the Westwood Affordable Housing Associates, which we often refer to as WAHA. So if we say WAHA, we're referring to the Westwood Affordable Housing Associates. So tonight we're being asked to authorize the transfer of funds to WAHA to provide for the purchase of one or more properties and related costs thereto. Back in 2018, at our town meeting, warrant article 19 was approved that said the following: to see if the town will vote to raise and/or appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1 million to establish an affordable housing account, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to expend in a manner that will support and/or create affordable housing units that can be listed on the state's subsidized housing inventory as qualified housing units to meet the requirements of Chapter 40B Mass General Law, or take any other action thereon. So the account was established, it was funded with $1 million, and it authorized the Select Board to expend funds in the manner that might allow for listing of additional units on the state's subsidized housing inventory. We have been informed that the Westwood Housing Authority is currently considering the purchase of up to 3 properties. It is WAHA,
It is
correct?
WAHA.
Yes.
Yeah, it says, not with the extra A. WAHA is considering the purchase of up to 3 additional residential properties for conversion to affordable rental units. Some of the funds will, let's see, it is recommended that a portion of the funds in the affordable housing account, where the $1 million resides, be authorized for transfer to WAHA's nonprofit affiliate, or Westwood Housing Authority's nonprofit affiliate, the Westwood Affordable Housing Associates, Inc., just to confuse things. They're two very similar names. WAHA would then use the funds to cover down payments and associated rehab costs where needed on up to 3 residential properties. We have our housing, I want to call you director, your official title is housing agent. Thank you. Sarah Bouchard is here if we have questions, and my understanding is that this request comes to us tonight and that WAHA will be meeting this week to discuss the actual pursuit of properties, but we are here tonight just with the request to transfer up to, or transfer $600,000 is the request before us. Is there anything my colleagues on the board have questions on while we have people here to answer them? Town Council, do you have any comments?
The only thing I will say is you need to be careful drafting your motion, because anything they do, the units, any possible purchase that they want to get themselves involved in, they have to be available or be made available to make the state subsidized housing inventory. That's a requirement of the warrant article.
Correct.
Okay.
Sarah, do you agree?
Okay, so it's consistent, what you're saying is we need to be sure our motion is consistent with
Correct. With the
what's
warrant.
stated in the warrant article
Yes.
from 2018.
That's correct.
I think I can do that. I got it. I move that we approve the transfer of $600,000 from the Affordable Housing account to the Westwood Affordable Housing Associates, Inc. for the purchase of up to 3 residential properties in Westwood, which properties shall be improved, marketed, and leased in a manner that allows the Department of Housing and Community Development approval of said properties as affordable housing units qualified for listing under the subsidized housing inventory.
Job well done.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Okay, please let the Westwood Affordable Housing Authority know that we have made that approval for the transfer. And our Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director is here, so you know we've now approved that transfer for them. Thank you.
And she must be
Okay.
here for our next
Our next item is the third quarter release of capital approved at the 2019 annual town meeting for overall capital, so this would be the third quarter coming up. The request is to release $67,000. As we have said in previous meetings, the majority of what gets approved at town meeting is used during the summer months. It makes sense. It's when the schools have time to do much of their capital work, and it's when we go out and buy replacement vehicles for the town and everything else. So we get to the last 2 quarters, and we're really at the tail end of the amount of money. Just for perspective, overall, we approved $4,796,000. So for this quarter, it's $67,000. The items to be used, the money to be used for IT and user technology, $12,500. The Westwood Affordable Housing Authority building maintenance and improvement of $15,000. Replacement vehicles for police, $29,500, and radio infrastructure for police, $10,000, for the total of $67,000. Any questions or discussion?
Nope.
Okay,
I
motion.
move that we approve the release of the third quarter FY20 capital totaling $67,000 to the various departments as outlined, contingent, of course, on procurement procedures and checklists being fulfilled.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Our next item is to discuss the initial warrant article list. We're doing this a little bit earlier this year. I think it's a good process to adopt, because I think it gets us aware of what is being considered by staff and any articles that would have Select Board as the sponsoring entity. And we have a list tonight, and we also have received a preliminary list of 8 articles that the Planning Board is considering requesting be added to the town meeting warrant. Just to remind everybody, the warrant is open for submissions now and will be closed officially by this board at our January 6th meeting. I think it's worth noting some of the articles that are before us or that will be considered for this warrant. I just want to mention what the planning board articles are. One, to regulate short-term rentals. Another, to take Morrison Park and, I remember hearing the fire station too, but this just says Morrison Park and Field out of the overlay district. That applies to the Islington Center area.
300 Washington.
Yeah,
think
remove
that's the
300
fire station,
Washington.
yeah.
Thank you. The third is it's a article relative to prohibitive zoning. I won't go into the specifics at this point. The fourth one, an article relative to firearms and explosive sales. A fifth one, zoning text and map amendments relative to medical uses. This is, I think, a revisit to an article that was pursued last year for a while. The sixth one is an article related to energy efficiency. Next, another one on a new affordability requirement for residential properties. And then the last one is a residential construction temporary moratorium. For the Select Board, the articles, by and large, are standard articles that we have seen in the past that relate to the budget and capital articles. I just want to mention again that we are considering a road improvement bond again this year. We trimmed that back last year, but stated that we knew the purposes of what was discussed last year would continue. So for at this point, there is a road improvement bond. And we have a potential article from the fire chief related to fire alarm system regulations, a revision to language, and I understand our town administrator and town council are having discussions with the fire chief on that one. So otherwise, we are just holding some placeholders. We're not taking any action tonight, but does the board have any questions for staff while we're here at this point? Okay.
Yes, so Nora, what's the purpose of removing Morrison Field from the MUOD so it can never be developed? Is that basically?
I believe so, could never be developed under the FMUOD special permit bylaw.
Okay.
The underlying zoning would apply. And I believe it is Morrison Park and the fire station.
Okay.
And what's the underlying zoning to those, just out of curiosity?
It had been local business B, and I believe it still is, but I have to check them out. I'm not
Okay,
100%
I'm sure you're going to be asked that. Or
Yeah,
they
several
or-
times, so you'll know by
Yes.
then.
Yeah,
Well,
please,
what's
John.
the driver of Article 8, the
Yeah.
moratorium?
One of the planning board members is interested in placing a moratorium that prevents any new residential construction or the addition of any units that could be considered residential. I believe, for instance, an accessory apartment special permit that would add a unit. The planning board member is interested in having a bylaw that prohibits that until such time as we know whether or not we have exceeded 10% on the subsidized housing inventory following the 2020 census.
So did you talk about the
There's
tear
been no
downs?
discussion.
This hasn't been
Oh,
talked
it
about
hasn't been
yet.
discussed,
It was
okay.
just,
Because I guess I'm just trying to understand, are we talking about increasing the number of housing units? Would the moratorium apply to all construction? If I'm talking about a tear down, we don't actually increase the number of housing units with a tear down.
So the article hasn't been drafted yet. and
Okay.
There are questions as to whether it would be lawful in any event.
Right.
Right.
So the planning board member who's interested in this article was encouraged to put their thoughts
Come up with a
on
proposal.
paper
Oh,
and
okay,
with the
okay.
town
So this is
council.
very rough, okay.
yeah, I think some of these were just added last week.
Right, and there was no discussion on the content of the
Okay.
article.
I mean, the moratorium would be from, what, town meeting, May until what, maybe September? When are we supposed to find out from, on the
We don't know
2020
yet when
statistics?
the-
It's not,
Late-
it's
late
not
in the year.
clear
Yeah.
Yeah.
how long
Right.
Or early
they
next year,
believe
the following year. I mean.
they need a moratorium for.
Okay.
Okay,
We have in the past considered moratoriums, and
The
as
fee-
soon as they're proposed, every builder with a piece of property
Correct.
runs to get in
runs to
before the
town hall to
moratorium
get
is
in
put in
on the
place.
moratorium.
Yeah, moratoriums tend to have a backlash effect. So, Chris, I think at our next meeting, it'd be great to have the chief here. He might be here for other reasons, because we're talking about capital, the budget discussions are ongoing. So I think that would be a great idea. And if anything happens on any of the placeholder articles, but we do sometimes have business come up after we close the warrant that requires inclusion on the town meeting, and that helps us facilitate that. So I know you'll keep us apprised as time goes on. Okay, thank you for adding those to tonight's agenda. All right, old business. Nora, do you want to come forward? Or maybe you don't. Okay, the next item is Reynolds Farm, which has been a perennial agenda item for us and for others. We are being asked to approve an amendment to the settlement agreement.
Correct.
Do you want to just give us the highlights,
Sure.
the abridged version?
Okay, so there was a settlement agreement that was signed by the two main parties, the Musto parties and the condo trust, and the town signed on as a facilitator of the agreement and essentially the escrow agent. That was over the summer. It was intended that the project would be completed and all contractors would be paid by November 6th, which was the completion date of the project. If that didn't happen, then the condo trust would receive access to the funds in the escrow account. The town would be able to pay their contractors. That date came and went. The Musto parties no longer control the funding in the escrow account. The town can now pay contractors that are under the authority of the condo trust. They ran into a little bit of a problem where there was some work that was done by Andrew Musto on a retaining wall, significant retaining wall, over $30,000 worth of work, that could not be paid by the town as escrow agent because there was a small portion of work, somewhere in the area of probably less than $2,000, that required a tie-in to a drainage line that had to be done. But the Musto parties were no longer able to access the site after November 6th, so they couldn't finish that, and therefore Andrew couldn't be paid for the $32,000 worth of work that he had already completed. The town's hands were tied, and the two parties sat down to talk about it. In addition, the condo trust found that when they were hiring contractors to finish the remaining unfinished work, the prices that they were getting were coming in high. Part of that was due to the fact that it was the end of the season. They were looking for landscaping and asphalt work. They were coming in higher than the original estimates, not higher than the amount of funds in the escrow account, but higher than the amount that the town was allowed to pay. The original settlement agreement limited the town to paying only 95% of an estimated value, no matter what the invoice was, until the whole project was complete. So as a result, there are a bunch of contractors who did work on the project in October, November, that could only be paid 95% of the amount, and there's money that's owed to them. When we thought the project was going to be completed before the end of the year, that was not a big deal. Now that we know that the final paving work can't be done until next spring, to hold those contractors up for another 6 months just does not seem right. So the condo trust sat down with the Musto parties, and they came to an amendment of the agreement that would allow for Andrew Musto to complete the little bit of tie-in work so that he could apply for the full payment, and would allow the condo trust to authorize the town to pay all contractors who've done work to date 100% of the invoice amount, and for contractors going forward in the spring, those same provisions. So what you have before you is an agreement that the town now is asked to sign in the same role as escrow agent, just to
So we're
monitor
essentially
that.
releasing escrow. We're not
We're-
allocating.
No.
Right, so the escrow funds are being held by the town.
Right.
And we are simply releasing them in accordance with the settlement agreement. When a contractor gives us an invoice, when we have a lien waiver, when everything's in hand, we pay them 95%. If this agreement is signed, and it's been signed by the other two parties, if the select board authorized the town administrator to sign this, we can pay up to 100% to all contractors who've done any work there, and Musto can go back in and finish the work that he needs to finish. And the condo association can hire their contractors to finish what they need to finish in the spring.
And you're
So I
telling us
think
they've all agreed.
They've all agreed.
That's all that
And I
matters.
We're just
think
the
it-
agents of the money, we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's all we're
Yes,
doing,
we're
but our
still the
hands have been, our
Party on
hands
the-
have been tied
right.
by the terms of the agreement, and this unties them. So it allows us to more efficiently and effectively pay contractors.
And what we're doing
hopefully
is we're
get work
getting to
done.
the end of this
We are, yes.
project.
It's only been going on since
This has been-
2012.
So we were hoping it'd be done by November, December. Now,
It's only a
this
new
will allow
decade
for
on
it to
the
be
offing.
done in June. And in the meantime,
You'll be done by, in June? What year?
That's where,
What
no.
year?
So there's a certificate of, an order of conditions by the Conservation Commission that actually was set to expire in December, and there's been a request by the condo trust to grant a 6-month extension. I believe that will be the last extension, and the work will be complete. It's not a whole lot of work that needs to be done, so
Right.
most of the heavy lifting is done. They need to
And the
pave
wa-
driveways
yeah.
and
The
finish a
wall looks good, and
guardrail.
that landscaping along 109 looks good.
Hopefully it
Landscaping
will
is
live
all
to see
complete.
another day, though. It went in pretty late. Okay, so.
I move
motion?
that we authorize the town administrator to sign the First Amendment to the settlement agreement for Reynolds Farm on behalf of the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you, Nora.
Thanks
So,
again, Nora.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I got to give Nora credit. She has worked her fingers to the bone
Yeah.
on this
This one
particular
hasn't been easy.
project, and has been very diligent on behalf of the residents there and the citizens, so
Well,
she
they-
deserves all the credit. in the
And they
world.
deserve that support, so thank you for helping them get through this. Okay, Special Counsel Dan Bailey is here. We have a amendment to the Land Disposition Agreement, LDA, that applies to the Islington Center development. And this is for the Phase 2 closing at the Islington redevelopment project. Do you want to give us highlights?
Sure, and I suggest Nora probably should come up too, because she's, as with the last one, of course,
Very
she's much
knowledgeable.
closer to the day-to-day details.
Thank you.
The board will recall that about a year ago, we closed Phase 1 of the Islington redevelopment. That involved the transfer to Petruzziello Properties of the former, the parking lot on the School Street side of Washington Street. The CVS has been built. A new parking lot has been built. Phase 2 involves transferring a portion of that parking lot, as well as land on which Wentworth Hall will be relocated to the town. Phase 2 also involves transferring the Wentworth Hall parcel, which is Wentworth Hall and all of the parking related, in that area next to the community center and the CVS, to Petruzziello Properties, as well as parking easements for both parcels for shared parking. So we've got 4 documents for you to sign tonight. All of, 2 deeds and 2 easements. All of those documents are in pretty much the same form that they were in as attachments to the land disposition agreement. So we've previously, and the amendment, and we've previously negotiated those. The new document that you have is an amendment to the land disposition agreement. And the reason that we are seeking an amendment is because the original LDA said that if Wentworth Hall had not been relocated at the time of the second closing, then Petruzziello Properties had the right to relocate it over to the other side of the street
Because you can't do anything
within
if it's in the
15
way.
days. And we said,
Yeah, 15.
because of challenges of the current construction environment. And, I'm seeing it everywhere in my practice. It's
High demand?
extremely high demand, extremely high prices. It's just there's so much work, and there aren't enough contractors. And particularly for smaller projects, it's really hard to get anybody to pay attention. And again, Nora can explain it in more detail. Wentworth Hall has not yet been moved. The town is working with contractors and with Petruzziello Properties, and Petruzziello has been cooperative, to make arrangements to move it 60 to 90 days from now. So what we want to do is amend the land disposition agreement to say that it will be, if it isn't moved by the town within 60 days after closing, Petruzziello can move it. But if he moves it, he's got to do it pursuant to the specs that we've developed, which would, at this point, require sort of paneling up the walls, preserving them, moving them to the other side of the street to be reconstructed by a contractor. So those are the 5 things that you've got in front of you. And what we've asked is that you need to sign the deeds and the easements. But because the Second Amendment to the land disposition agreement is still a little bit of a moving target, though I think we're pretty close on that, we're asking that you authorize the town administrator to execute that at the recommendation of special town council and town council. We're trying to close this by the end of the month.
So they're gonna move it in pieces, Wentworth Hall?
That seems to be the best way to do so. We went out to bid for a request for proposals to move the building, and the original request for proposals got absolutely no takers, and it involved both the demolition work that has to be done to remove appurtenances and hazardous materials before transferring it, and then moving it over. No bidders. Then we split the project into 2 pieces, one contractor doing the demo work to prepare it, another contractor doing the bid. Those bids open tomorrow, but we still have no bites. So we're having trouble finding a building mover. The project's not in the sweet spot. It's too small, yet it's a public contract requiring a lot of paperwork. It requires a certain level license by a GC because of the amount and the nature of the work. So it's, too high for a small guy to do, but too much work for a big guy to do. So we looked at the option of instead taking it into pieces, panelizing the structure, moving those over and reconstructing them on site. That seems to be the best way to go about it. We're still preserving the building. We're just doing it in a more cost-effective manner. By doing it that way, we also save substantially on the construction costs because we don't have to use these steel beams to form a floor between the community room and the new library. So seems to be a better way to go about it. We'll achieve the same ends, and GC can make that move rather than having to have a full building mover do it.
Well, we don't have a GC yet, right?
We don't yet. So we're waiting for tomorrow's bid. I could
Right.
be wrong, and we could get a great price that comes in from someone to prepare the building for move and someone else to move it. And we go with the original plans, or we go with the revised plans. We're putting out a bid for a GC to do the renovation of the property and the expansion for the Youth and Family Services Office. So that RFP will go out in the probably next 3 weeks or so.
So hypothetically speaking, let's say we get nobody, right? Does that mean Giorgio can move it in 90 days?
Giorgio can move it in 60 days from the date of closing,
Right.
yes. Yes.
60 days plus 15.
Well, because he has to give notice. If he gives notice on the 45th day, he could move it on the 61st.
That's correct.
Okay.
But if he does move it, he would have to move it according to the same plans that we're putting out there for bid, and it could not be at a price that was higher than what we would anticipate receiving at the bid. So the town loses nothing if he moves the building.
And right now, under your current agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, all he has to do is move it across the street and dump it on a lawn.
That's the concern. That's the real reason for this, not only
Not that he
adding
would do
the
that.
additional 60 days, but to make sure that we don't end up with the building in the way.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Want to get it to where it needs to be so we can continue on with the work.
We do.
Any questions,
But
John?
he hasn't agreed to this yet, right? Did I read that? He hasn't agreed to it?
I mean, Peter Zock and I have been negotiating back and forth, and really, the change that Peter asked for in the document was to make sure that Petruzziello gets paid if he does the work, which seems pretty fair.
It's just making sure the document is,
Yeah, it's just making sure the
represents both
document's
parties'
fair.
wishes.
Yes, because on the first draft, I honestly didn't think of that, and I didn't include it, and so he came back and said,
Yeah.
gee, I'd like to get paid.
And that was in the original.
It was in the original, yeah, so, and right now where we are is we're proposing that it be a credit on the Phase 3 closing, just because it mechanically works much easier that way. That's how we've done things previously. There are some credits that would be applied to the Phase 2 closing, so.
We
Okay.
appreciate your diligence in all this. It's, the multi-phase project has complications, and it's good to be able to address where we are now and make it work for us to get the building moved as planned and for him to move on with his project. So,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, I move that we In accordance with the land disposition agreement between the town and the Petruzzello Properties LLC dated June 11th, 2018 as amended, that the board first approve and execute a deed conveying the Wentworth Hall parcel to Petruzzello Properties LLC.
You want to do those individually?
You want to? Let's
Should we do them individually?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I'll second number one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Move that we accept the deed from Petruzzello Properties to the town for Lot 2 adjacent to CVS.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
I further move that we approve and execute the 2 easement agreements.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
I further move that we authorize the town administrator to execute a second amendment to the LDA and all other closing documents as may be necessary at the direction of both special and general counsel,
Town council.
town council.
Go ahead, there's more. Is there not
That's
more?
5. That's
Oh, I have,
I'm on
I-
4.
my old one's still coming up.
Okay.
Also add, including any acknowledgement that may be required by the Registry of Deeds that the Select Board has accepted the deed for Petruzzello Properties
Oh, it's been updated.
as amended.
That was a late ad that I put in, and
Oh.
that's reflective of
I got a paper copy, that's why I have it.
what we
That's updated.
learned is, I learned 2 weeks ago, after a
Okay,
big
yeah.
flurry of activity, the Registry of Deeds
Hold on.
is now requiring an acknowledgement from the town that it has accepted a deed. A town has to accept a deed, but
Okay.
What do you do
Typically-
for again?
I'll do
that
for again,
motion
yeah.
again,
Yeah,
just so
yeah.
we make sure it's
Yes.
complete.
in the past, we didn't have to
Yeah.
put it on the
Okay.
actual deed. Now that they want to see it there.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Dan.
I
Mr.
move that
Walsh,
we-
hang on. You wish to amend your motion?
I do. Well, it wasn't seconded, so I'll withdraw the original motion and
Thank
and
you.
restate it. I move that we authorize the town administrator to execute a second amendment to the land disposition agreement and all such other closing documents as may be necessary at the direction of town and special counsel, including any acknowledgement that may be required by the Registry of Deeds as the Select Board has accepted the deed from Petruzzello Properties.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed,
And I
none.
further move, I further move that we direct Special Town Council Dan Bailey to hold the executed documents in escrow until the second phase closing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
So I just handed Tish 2 copies of each document.
Okay,
That's what we need
And
to sign
they're
tonight.
marked where you're supposed to sign them.
Okay.
good
And
thing.
I've got one for you, Chris. And we'll need to get those notarized. And
Free
You're
we've
not
got
a
free
notary,
acting
are
deed,
you?
yeah.
Pat?
Not yet.
Is it
It's
okay?
my free acting deed, Dan.
But Dan, is it okay if we sign them now?
Yeah.
You're usually supposed, okay.
The amendment, Giorgio might have some more comments.
Yeah, I'm
so
not
maybe
having
don't
Chris sign the
that one
amendment,
yet.
no.
Okay.
No, he's signing the deed to us,
Okay.
recognizing that the board has voted to accept it.
You know what, since, I'll just wait.
Not yet. They may change.
Notary, okay.
I don't know. Dan,
Yes.
you want him to
You want me
sign
to
it?
hold off
Yes.
now or sign now?
That one I want you to sign.
Okay.
That's not the LDA, that's the acceptance of the deed.
Oh, okay.
And they just approved that.
Okay, one. Those are all notaries, you just have to sign where the red is, Nance,
Then I'll forward those two tomorrow.
I'll have
just
you
where the
sign it.
red.
You know what, they're originals.
That's the one I think he wants you to hold on to.
Those are all originals, I'm gonna need the originals.
They are, yes.
Two of the same.
You know what, drop them in the mail, Tish, it'll be fine. Yeah, we're not closing
They both have
this
two
week.
copies of the
Oh, okay.
form of
So
the-
Does
Yeah,
that say
I mean,
quitclaim
we've got to
deed?
get a couple of easement plans done before we can close.
Yes.
Yep, go.
So Dan, you're a notary, right?
No,
No?
but it's on tape.
Okay. You're not either?
Not yet. Are you?
Of course. I'm up in April too, so 2020, so renew.
you
Thank you.
check these when we're done to make sure we didn't miss anything?
Dan,
Dan, will you check them when we're done?
whether we have to, any action we need to take on that, or is that just?
To bring all my licenses for me to sign as the clerk.
I found it.
Well, just let me know, I'll just kind of.
Okay, thanks.
Dan, will you just check these over when John's done, make
Yeah.
sure we didn't miss
One thing you
anything?
have to do as the clerk, it's not your
Okay.
signatures. are-
And while John's finishing up his signing, I want to move along to the DPW union contract. We have before us an agreement with the DPW United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 1445.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to recuse myself from this matter.
Okay. Are you okay if we proceed while you're in the room, or would you prefer to be out of the room? Okay, thank you. So the DPW's contract term ended on June 30th, 2019. During the last year or two of the contract, we have been working, or the DPW's been working on hiring new employees, and we find that we needed to adjust some of the compensation schedules in order to be more competitive in the marketplace. So we have reached an agreement, and Mike Gillette, as our former town administrator and the HR director, met with the union membership at the end of October. A new compensation schedule and timeline was presented, and the union has agreed to a one-year contract extension. So our job tonight, if we choose to do so, is to sign a memorandum of agreement for the one-year contract extension, which I would imagine takes us to June 30th, 2020. Unless somebody tells me otherwise, I think that
Correct.
1 year goes from when the last contract,
This would be retroactive.
retroactive, okay, to July 1, 2019.
Yes.
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
all through it.
Motion?
I move that we sign the memorandum of understanding for a one-year contract extension with the DPW, also known as United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 1445.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank Joan for getting
I
that
certainly
done.
A lot of work.
And we have minutes, Tish, for November 18th. Do you have hard copy? I would love to have it and give a quick look again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, thank you.
It's cold out there.
Thanks. Any edits?
I think the only edit I would make on the multi-purpose turf field replacement, I suggested a study of the spacing of the fields at the high school. And the minutes say study of all fields.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to be specific, and I was talking about the high school. Yeah.
And MPF is multipurpose field?
Yes.
That maybe should be spelled out, so. And Chris, for going forward, I know we're in transition here, and it's from Mike. We usually look to have the town administrator sign off on what we receive, so we know that you've reviewed it. And to the extent that you want to have town council review or special counsel, should there be legal matters involved in any of the minutes, have them added on as if they have reviewed it and signed off.
We'll do.
Executive session.
Okay. So we have minutes as amended?
No, I know.
I think we left it open-ended that we might
Yes.
return.
Right, okay. Okay, I move that we approve the minutes of the Select Board from November 18th, 2019, consisting of 9 pages, as written and amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? Okay, and that's it for this evening. Public, press, any questions? Okay. We have our next meeting in the new year on January 6th. So I wish everyone a happy holiday season and a happy new year, and we'll see you back here January 6th at 7:30 PM.
See
Thank you.
see
Motion
next
to
year.
adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.